Hello, I am about a minute early. But I did promise that I would be going live today at 1 o'clock to talk about how to start to get your business out of your head so that you can build your $1 million business while running it from the road or from an RV, and so that you're not at the center of it all. So, no matter what you want, what your personal choice of freedom is, I just want to talk today about how you can start to get everything out of your head so that your team, your AI tools can move forward really effectively. So, while we are waiting for some others, I'm actually going to open with a true story about this week, about life on the road. This week, my husband had to be out of town. Our Starlink apparently died during this. And because of my AI usage and my Zoom usage to talk to clients, I apparently killed all the data in our 5G router. So, when you live the nomad life, you do have to have multiple resources in order to be able to connect to the internet, especially when you're in a remote based business. And apparently I killed one of ours. I'm not sure what killed the other one, quite honestly. So we've had that Starlink for a while, even since before we decided to do this full time. So such is life on the road, problem solving at its finest. But my husband was amazingly able to go out and secure another resource today. So if you experience any delays or anything going on today with our live stream, that is probably part of the reason why. But we did get another router with some more data so that we can get through to the end of the month and until our next Starlink actually arrives, our new Starlink actually arrives. So forced upgrade, I guess that's what we'll call it today. So welcome for those of you who are joining me live today. As I said, my name is Christy Cox. I do travel around the country with my family, but that is not what this channel is necessarily about. I am currently building my $1 million plus business while traveling around with my family. And the one thing that I knew when I went into this business was that I did not want to be at the center of it all. I am the visionary. I do own the majority of the processes. I do work with the majority of my clients, but I don't want to be the one doing all of the things. In fact, I think it's very limiting for anyone who wants to be the CEO and the visionary of what they're building to be the doer of all the things. You've got to be able to pass that down. And right now we have more resources available to us than ever before in terms of AI tools, AI agents, and other resources such as offshore virtual assistants and executive assistants that we can effectively pass a lot of the doing onto. I know my blue collar workers would probably argue labor is one of the hardest things the thing that they're struggling the most to find right now. But I think in terms of remote based businesses, we have more resources available to us than ever before. But what I hear most from most of the people that I work with is that they're really struggling. They always come to me and it's a few different things. I just need some more SOPs. I don't know what to do. My executive assistant, she's just not doing the things that I need her to. I think I've told her a million times, but she just can't seem to do it. Or they have a whole team and the team is not doing what it is that they need them to. Or several times I've heard, I have this business that seems to be doing really well, but I am just working so many more hours than I ever wanted to. I don't even know if I want to keep it. I know for all intents and purposes, it is successful, but I don't even know if I want this business anymore. And what usually happens when we dig in, I find out it's a few different things. So first and foremost, it's about clarity. They're just not clear in what it is that they're building, or they haven't clearly communicated it to the team. And the second part is that they're not clear in what good performance looks like. And generally, they've hired based on a cash constraint. So they've hired people that can't necessarily get them to where they want to go. You can do that, and you still can turn these people into people who could possibly get you where you want to go, but not if everything's been living in your brain. And that's the key thing that I actually want to talk about today. The number one thing that you really need to free you up, you need to focus on to free you up, is to get all of that stuff out of your brain and into a place where everyone, including your AI agents, has access to it. And I am not talking about in the 97 Google Docs that Claude has spit out for you and you've stored somewhere on the back end in your Google Drive. And where this became the most apparent to me early on in my early days was when I was thinking about bringing on a partner, and I was trying to explain to him exactly what it is that I was trying to do. And I was looking for resources that I knew I had developed, but I couldn't easily turn over. And I kept having to go find different documents and send it to him. And he didn't really want to read those documents anyways. And then I was sending him different videos that I'd made over time and different, again, just like I was like you, I had the 97 documents hanging out in the back end. And I didn't always know exactly where they were located. And so one day I decided to sit down and just take a harder look at everything and say, what are these other companies that I've worked with in the past doing differently? When I started Veriscale, AI was really just becoming a tool that we could use to increase our overall productivity. I think in the beginning days, like none of us really knew exactly what it was going to do for us. And now we've landed in this place where we're like, oh yeah, if it's used effectively, it can increase our productivity and it can increase our team's productivity. But we've got to be able to hand them the resources to do that. And I think we were all using it a little in the beginning to help with our strategic thinking process. And in doing that, I guarantee again, like you've got a bunch of documents floating around in a bunch of different places, and you thought you had to pin them into Claude, and the ones that are there, they're probably outdated. And so your AI tools are pulling outdated information, your team's pulling outdated information, and no one's really sure exactly what it is that you're trying to achieve. So when I sat down and I started to think about this in terms of what, other clients I had worked with in the past had, or that what we had used in our prior businesses, there was always a set of very clear SOPs in a database that everyone could reach into to determine, what a specific task, like what they were supposed to be doing in a specific task or a specific process. There was a database about each of the clients that my client was serving or that we were serving. There was information that was accessible by the entire team. Now, back in those olden days, it usually existed in some type of manual that wasn't a Google Doc, or maybe you're using like something like Atlassian on the back end, and you had to manually update it every single time something changed. And so I know in our last business at PPS, we hired a director of operations, and this was one of the specific things that this person was hired for, was to keep all of that documentation updated and then communicate it to the team so that the team knew exactly what it is that they were supposed to do. Well, as things have progressed, as time has gone on, so much of this has actually changed. And this has become a place where your AI tools can actually keep it updated for you. But what you don't want is for it to continuously put out all of those Google Docs that you have to then link into it to give it the information that it needs. And what you also don't want is to have to continuously tell it to update its own memory. Instead, you need a resource that stores all of this information, that can give you dashboards, that give you key insights into your business, give your team key insights into how their performance is, how they're measuring up, and what it is that they're supposed to do. And so that's what I really want to talk about today. So we're going to kick this off talking about the context tags. So for those of you who have watched any of my videos in the past, I like to call myself an accountant by trade. I do have a master's degree in accounting. I was a VP of client services for a multi-million-dollar CAS business, CAS being client advisory services. So we had CFO, tax, bookkeeping, accounting, all of that good back-end stuff that everybody needs for their finance department. And so what the context tax is the tax that you pay as the founder and the CEO every time that you have to go back and answer a question or re-explain something or hunt down another document. Every time you get that Slack ping and you're like, what did you say? What were you telling me? Where's this resource? Can you send me over this link? It's a 3-minute task at most. But every time you have that 3-minute task take place, you need about 15 to 20 minutes to recover from having to switch context from whatever it is that you're working on, from having to share the context that you thought your team already had, the resources that you thought they already had. It's the same thing. The same type of context tax applies with your AI tools. Every time you're working on something, you're deep in thought and you're getting through things, and then it spits something out and that is outdated information, or it's based off that outdated information. You're paying a tax on the time it then takes to re-explain the shift that it didn't remember from before that you made last week or a few days ago, or I would even say last month. I've had this come up a few times. It wasn't that long ago that I actually shifted. I got rid of a whole offer within my entire program. And so that actually narrowed my niche and changed my ICP a little bit. And I did find myself in that place where, again, like, the memory of my AI tools was not up to date with the shifts that I had made. And again, it went back to this place where I was like, what are people doing differently that enabled them to not have to do this explaining, to not have to pay this context tax continuously? Because as founders, we really can't afford to continuously pay that context tax over and over and over. You're the visionary. You're the person that has to have space to think, to strategically plan for the future. You're the person who has to really put in the hours and the brain power behind how you're going to continue to grow and expand your business, how you're going to continue to grow and expand your team, how you're going to continue to effectively work with all of your clients and your customers. All of that falls on you, and everything else really needs to fall on your team without you having to be the explainer. So the answer to all of this, the answer to how you get out of paying this context tax, really lies in that single source of truth, having one clear single source of truth that, again, is not a Google Doc. And for this, I recommend actually using Notion, because Notion can be easily updated by your AI tools. It can be easily maintained. You can run daily logs in Notion. So throughout the week, you can move messages from Slack into Notion, so that when you go to use your AI tools, or when you go to communicate to your team or have them have access to key client information, it's all up to date and it's living in one clear place where everybody has access, and they can get access to you, your brain, and everything that's happened without having to actually ping you. Now, what I don't like to use Notion for is project management. I think it takes too much of a heavy lift. And so unless you're, a 5, 7, $10 million company already, and you can dedicate a person and a resource to keeping that organized in a very clear and easy to find way, I just don't recommend it at that point in time. I think it is something that they're continuing to work on and could be accessible to the future. But I do like to use Asana for project management. ClickUp is great too. It's just super, super intuitive to use. And I find that to be the easiest way to transfer knowledge to your team, is when you don't make the software overly complicated. But I do love Notion for being a database. I love the layout, and I actually do use it to manage and run a lot of my content as well. I find it extremely useful for that. So the reason that I think having this type of database is so great is that, it does enable you to work from anywhere. So if you have changes that you need to make on the fly, I don't know if you're like me, I'm driving down the road and suddenly my brain has some time to think. Maybe I'm listening to an ebook, or I'm listening to some music in the background, and my kids and I are singing out loud. And then all of a sudden my brain got a little bit freed up from things that were floating around. And then I find all the ideas want to download to me. I can actually just click that Claude button, have Claude actually run in and update the pages in Notion after we've had some discussion around what it is that's going through my brain. I can actually even use it. I can use Claude to set up communications for later that I could send to my clients. I can update my client agendas for the upcoming meetings, which I do actually share with all of them. They all have access to one page where our agenda is easily updated, so I can maintain the notes there so that they get access to that in the future. So I absolutely love it for that. And sometimes, after it's been a heavy day and then I take a walk, it's a great time for me to just do that. One of my clients, actually, she loves voice notes, and this was a great way to get her to stop sending me voice notes that I later had to memorize. Or I could go in and take all of her voice notes and click a transcription, jump them into Claude, have Claude organize it, and then put that into Notion so I can remember at a later time and then figure out what I actually needed to put in Asana and what didn't need to be actually applied in there. I also love it for being your single source of truth, because I can put dashboards in there really, really easily, and they're easily maintained, a lot easier than, or more easily than spreadsheets. And so I'm able to give some of my clients access to dashboards that I have built out for them. I'm able to give my team members access to dashboards that we use to help manage their performance. And again, I can have Claude update it without spitting out a whole other spreadsheet. So, and everything stays in one clear document. So you can have the dashboard up top and you can have all the contextual information listed out below. So I love it for that. And I mean, that's just one of the many reasons. So when you're starting to set this up, and that's one of the things that we're going to talk about next week. Next week, I'm actually going to do another live session Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern, and I'm going to show you how to set up your very first headquarter page mirrored off of the one that I actually have set up. But before you do that, so you have a little homework if you're seeing this before then. Go in and you need to start to map out what I call your $1 million plus destinations. So that's your vision for what it is that you're building. That is your ideal role in it. Most founders I talk to have never sat down to think about their ideal role. They are so inundated with being in the reactive space and just trying to scramble and keep up that they've never sat down and said, this is what I want my CEO role to look like. So I highly encourage you to do that because that is a destination. That is somewhere that you're trying to get. I told you when I started this business, I knew I did not want to be at the center of it all. I want to have the freedom to read, to think about strategy, to strategically think about my business, and then to figure out the next best steps to get there. I want to be able to do the same thing for my clients, to really have that space to think about them and to help figure out how we could best prioritize the actions to get them to where they want to go. I can't do that if I'm in the background doing all of the things and handling all of the setup of their systems and stuff. I have to have people for that. And in order to have the people for that, they have to have the tools and the resources they need without access to me at all times so that they can be able to move forward and do what it is that they need to do. I knew in the beginning that that was where I wanted to get and where I wanted to go as we grew. The third destination that you need to get clear in, what is your client experience? What is the client or the customer experience that you're trying to create? You know, some people are like, they just want to do the repetitive task over and over on the back end. Maybe they're doing bookkeeping and they just want it to be super they want it to be just standardized, and they want it, to be not necessarily customizable for every single client that they serve. Some people want to create that white glove client experience. I think client experience is your differentiator. It doesn't mean that it has to be high end and white glove. It just means that it has to be well defined and that you have to have systemized and built your business around that client experience that you want to create. I mean, the barriers to entry on entrepreneurship right now, they're so low, especially with AI. And we're getting so many people crowded into the space that aren't genuinely experts in a particular field. They're just using AI to portray that certain level of expertise. So you need to really sit down and say, what's going to set me apart and how can I make sure that my clients and customers know that I know what I'm talking about and that I can serve them in the way that they want. And then not only how do you portray that, how do you make it an actual experience so that they start to refer you to others? That's so much cheaper than having to do a ton of marketing on the back end. And then the final destination that you need to get clear in are your metrics. And that includes your take-home pay. What is the take-home pay that you need and want as an entrepreneur? That's super important. Like, we're not doing this to just build ourselves another $120,000, $150,000 a year job. We don't want that in our lives. There's something more that you want, and you need to get clear on that. And then you need to basically reverse engineer that into what does my revenue need to be? What do my margins need to be? And what is the retention rate that I need to have? Because churn is super expensive. There are some other key metrics in there that we could talk about, and you can always dig into any of my founder math videos or my videos around the metrics that are important in your business. But start with those. Those are super important. You're going to take all of this information, and next week, we are going to use it to actually build out your headquarters and your dashboard so that your team, including your AI tools, knows where it is that you want to go so that they can all help you to building the roadmap to ensuring that you can get there and that they can perform in the way you need them to actually help you get there and start to help you track the things that you're doing so that you know what's working and what's not. Um, you know, I will tell you, before I did this again, I thought about bringing on a partner a while ago, and I was trying to communicate to him what exactly it was that we were doing and where exactly it was I wanted to go in the future. And when I didn't have it in that single source of truth, I had a couple of different Google Docs that had outlined it in a couple of different ways. They had mapped out a couple of different ICPs and offers, and it was quite clear because I didn't have to have it communicated to anyone at that time. But it did help me see how disorganized I had been in the past, because it was okay to live in my head. And it wasn't until that I sat down to go through this exercise that I was really able to make my AI tools as effective as I needed them to be. And since then, I've actually built out several agents, including AI CSMs for all of my clients. And I've built out Monday and Friday processes. I've got several others that are actually built out. But I would say that my AI integrator that runs the Monday and Friday process probably freed up the most time for me as a whole. On Fridays, I used to sit down and want to close out all of my clients, and it would take me more than half the day to be able to close them out. And I had far less clients at that time. Now that whole process takes me about an hour, because I was able to, because my single source of truth stays constantly updated, and my AI CSMs are the ones who constantly help me keep it updated. And my daily log helps to log all of the activities that have happened. And since all of this information is constantly updated and stays up to date, now my AI integrator on Fridays is able to pull all of that information and deliver a report to me that I am then able to just kind of go through. And then I use all of that and I either approve it or make some changes. And then my AI integrator actually sets up all of my agendas, does my time blocking for the next week, cleans up and makes sure Asana is up to date, completes the tasks that need to be completed, sets up the new ones that need to be set up, assigns it out to the right people, puts the instructions into the description, and make sure all of that is taken care of. And again, it takes me usually less than an hour, something that used to take me half a day or more. And so when I go back again and I start to think about, one of the key things that I see missing out of 90% of the businesses or the people that I talk to is that they're missing the single source of truth. It exists in Google Docs and in their head only. And so it looks like, if you ever think about like the wheels with the hub and spoke model, it looks like that wheel and all of those spokes. So your team, your AI tools, your outsourced partners, everything, it's all connected back into you. You're at the center of it all. And if you happen to step out of that wheel, all the rungs fall out and it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to flop over. It's done. Now, when you move it over into Notion, that middle part, the hub, it becomes that single source of truth becomes the middle part, and nothing ever has to fall off. So you step out, it still exists and it can still run even without you having to be involved. And so that wheel starts to turn and gain momentum. Hopefully at some point it's heading downhill at a super fast race and you're beating out all of the others and getting to, those $1 million plus destinations that you want to get to at a much more rapid pace than you were before. That's the beauty of setting up and getting to this single source of truth. So I appreciate you guys for being here today. Like I said, next week, I'm going to walk you through how to set up your headquarters and, how to make use of all those $1 million plus destinations. If you haven't ever seen any of my videos on what the $1 million plus destinations are and how you can get clear in them, please go back and review those. There's a whole playlist dedicated to those. Just sitting down and taking time to get clear in that is going to help you actually set up this headquarters page. We will also get it connected into Claude, so you can start to use your AI tools, and you can actually connect it. If ChatGPT is your preference, we can connect it in there as well. So we will actually help you start to set up this place that can move you out of the middle of your business. Make sure you're not the hub in that wheel and spoke model, and move it into this resource so that you can start to become more effective by being in your business less. And I'm going to show you how. Again, I'm currently in the process of setting up a second business with my husband, and so it's a great time for me to be able to show you exactly how to do this. So if you guys have any questions, please comment below. I am more than happy to answer them. I do check in here pretty frequently to see, what's happening. And I appreciate you taking the time to be with me today. I look forward to going live with you next week. Again, that's Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern. We're traveling on Thursday, so I will be live with you then, and you can always catch the replay if you can't make it at that time. So thanks, guys, and we will talk soon.